A broke single dad inherits a rotting garage. Everyone thinks it's worthless until a stranger knocks on the door with an offer that changes everything. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. The last straw. The rain came down in sheets, drumming against the roof of Daniel Carter's battered 2003 Ford pickup, like it had a personal vendetta against him. The windshield wipers groaned as they fought a losing battle against the storm, their uneven rhythm matching the anxious thud of Daniel's heartbeat. His fingers tightened around the steering wheel, knuckles whitening as another notification buzzed on his phone. Overdue. Final notice. He didn't need to read the rest. He knew what it said. The rent was late, again, and if he didn't come up with $1,200 by the end of the week, he and Sophie would be out on the street. In the back seat, his 8-year-old daughter hummed softly to herself, swinging her legs as she doodled in a notebook. The sound should have been comforting, but tonight it only made the weight on his chest heavier. "Daddy?" Sophie's voice cut through his thoughts. "Can we get pizza tonight?" Daniel's stomach twisted. They hadn't splurged on takeout in months. He glanced at the gas gauge. Half a tank, just enough to get him to his second job. "Maybe next week, kiddo," he said, forcing a smile into the rearview mirror. Sophie nodded. Too used to disappointment to argue. She went back to her drawing, blissfully unaware of the eviction notice crumpled in the glove box. Daniel exhaled slowly, his breath fogging the cold glass. He was exhausted. 2 jobs, construction by day, stocking shelves at a warehouse by night. And still it wasn't enough. Every dollar he scraped together disappeared into bills, groceries, Sophie's school supplies. He hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in years. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. For a second, he considered ignoring it. Another bill collector, probably. But something made him answer. "Mr. Carter?" A woman's voice, professional but not unkind. "This is Margaret Hayes from Henderson and Lowe Legal Associates. I'm calling regarding the estate of Marvin Carter." Daniel frowned. Marvin? His uncle, the odd, reclusive man he'd met maybe 3 times in his life. The one who lived in that rundown property at the edge of town, surrounded by rumors of hoarding and paranoia. "What about him?" Daniel asked, voice rough. "I'm sorry to inform you that Mr. Carter passed away last month," Margaret said. "As his only living relative, you've been named the sole beneficiary of his estate." Daniel's grip on the phone tightened. His estate? A property and its contents. A garage specifically. A garage. Of course. Daniel almost laughed. The universe had a sick sense of humor. Here he was, drowning in debt, and his inheritance was a decaying building full of God knows what. Still, he arranged to meet Margaret the next day. Maybe he could sell the land, scrap the metal, anything to buy himself another month in their apartment. The next morning, Daniel pulled up to the address Margaret had given him. The place looked worse than he remembered. The wooden garage slumped like a tired old man, its roof sagging under years of neglect. Weeds clawed their way through cracked concrete, and the air smelled of damp earth and rust. Sophie wrinkled her nose as she climbed out of the truck. "It's creepy, Daddy." "Yeah," Daniel muttered. "Let's make this quick." The lock was rusted shut, so he kicked the door open with a splintering crack. Dust swirled in the dim light as they stepped inside. The space was cluttered with tarps, old tools, and stacks of yellowed newspapers. Then Sophie tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, what's under there?" She pointed to a bulky shape hidden beneath a stained canvas tarp. Daniel grabbed a corner and yanked it back. The dust cleared, and his breath stopped. Gleaming under decades of grime was the sleek, unmistakable curve of a 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO. Daniel's hand shook. This wasn't just a car. It was a legend, one of the rarest, most valuable Ferraris in existence. And it was sitting in a collapsing garage. His pulse roared in his ears. What else was under these tarps? Sophie's eyes widened as she whispered, "Daddy, are we rich?" Daniel didn't answer, because right then his phone rang again, and nothing would ever be the same. The hidden fortune. Daniel's phone buzzed violently in his pocket, snapping him out of his daze. He fumbled to answer, his fingers still trembling from the shock of what he'd just uncovered. "Hello." His voice came out hoarse. "Mr. Carter?" It was Margaret Hayes again, the lawyer. "I forgot to mention, your uncle left some documents here with us. There's a condition to the inheritance." Daniel's stomach tightened. Of course there was a catch. There was always a catch. What kind of condition? "You'll need to come down to the office," Margaret said. "There are specifics." Daniel glanced back at the Ferrari, half convinced he was hallucinating. "I'll be there in an hour." He hung up and turned to Sophie, who was now running her small fingers along Ferrari's pristine fender, leaving trails in the dust. "Don't touch anything, sweetheart," he said gently. "We don't know what's safe in here." Sophie nodded but didn't move away from the car. "Daddy, is this why Uncle Marvin never let anyone visit?" Daniel exhaled. "Maybe." He pulled back another tarp, then another, a 1955 Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR, one of only two in existence. A 1970 Plymouth Hemi, Cuda, mint condition, its plum-crazy paint still vibrant under the grime. A 1963 Jaguar E-Type, its chrome gleaming like it had just rolled off the assembly line. Daniel's knees nearly gave out. This wasn't just a collection. It was a gold mine. An hour later, Daniel sat across from Margaret Hayes in her cramped office, Sophie swinging her legs in a chair beside him. The lawyer slid a folder across the desk. "Your uncle was particular," she said carefully. "He didn't trust banks. Didn't trust most people, really, but he loved those cars." Daniel flipped open the folder. Inside were faded photographs of Marvin as a younger man, standing beside each of the vehicles now rotting in that garage. There were handwritten notes, too, maintenance logs, auction receipts, even a few angry letters to dealers who had tried to cheat him. "The condition," Margaret continued, "is that you can't sell them to just anyone. Marvin wanted them to go to real enthusiasts, people who'd care for them like he did." Daniel rubbed his temples. "So I can't just auction them off?" "You can," Margaret said, "but there's a list of approved buyers. And one more thing." She handed him a small key. This was in his safety deposit box. "He said you'd know where to use it." Daniel turned the key over in his palm. Then it hit him, the lock cabinet in the garage. By the time they got back, the sun was setting, casting long shadows through the broken garage windows. Daniel made Sophie wait in the truck. The place was too unstable to risk her wandering around. The cabinet was tucked in the back, behind stacks of old road and track magazines. Daniel's hand shook as he turned the key. The lock clicked. Inside was a leather-bound journal. He flipped it open. "They called me a fool for buying these when no one wanted them," Marvin had written in jagged script. "But man's legacy isn't the money he leaves. It's in the stories." The next pages were a revelation. Every car had a history. The Ferrari? Won in a poker game from a mobster in 1978. The Mercedes? Rescued from a junkyard for $3,000 in 1982. Marvin hadn't just collected cars. He'd saved them. Then Daniel reached the last entry, dated just weeks before Marvin's death. Asterisk if you're reading this. "Danny boy, don't let those vultures at the auction houses lowball you. The Ferrari alone is worth over $50 million. And whatever you do," asterisk. A loud knock at the garage door made Daniel jump. He slammed the journal shut and crept to the window. A man in a tailored suit stood outside, his polished shoes gleaming in the dirt. "Mr. Carter?" The stranger's voice was smooth. "I'm with Classic Collectors. We'd like to make you an offer." Daniel's blood ran cold. How had they found him so fast? And how much did they really know? The vulture's circle. The knock came again, sharper this time, impatient. Daniel hesitated, the journal still clutched in his hands. Through the grimy garage window, he could see the man in the suit glancing at his watch, his polished demeanor beginning to crack. No one should know about this place. Daniel shoved the journal into his back pocket and cracked the door open just enough to speak through it. "Can I help you?" The man flashed a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Carter, my name is Vincent Cole. I represent Classic Collectors International." He held out a business card between two manicured fingers. "We specialize in rare automotive acquisitions." Daniel didn't take the card. "How did you find me?" Vincent chuckled, like it was a silly question. Word travels fast in our world, Mr. Carter, especially when a 250 GTO surfaces after 30 years in hiding. His gaze slid past Daniel, trying to peer into the shadowy garage. We'd like to make you a very generous offer. Right now. Behind him, Daniel heard Sophie's voice from the truck. Daddy? Who is that? Vincent's smile widened. Ah, you have your daughter with you. How lovely. He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a checkbook. Why don't we settle this quickly? $20 million. Today. The number should have made Daniel's knees weak. Instead, his fingers tightened around the doorframe. Uncle Marvin's warning echoed in his mind. Don't let those vultures lowball you. That's not for sale, Daniel said flatly. Vincent's smile froze. Mr. Carter, be reasonable. This structure isn't secure. These cars need professional care. I said no. Daniel started to close the door. Vincent's hand shot out, stopping it. For the first time, his voice lost its polished edge. You have no idea what you're sitting on, do you? His eyes darkened. That Ferrari is worth triple what I just offered. But here's the thing. Without the right buyer, without the paperwork we can provide, it's just a stolen car waiting to be impounded. Daniel's stomach dropped. Stolen? Vincent saw the doubt flash across his face and pressed his advantage. Meet me tomorrow. Bring the Ferrari. We'll talk numbers. He slid another card through the gap in the door. For your daughter's sake, don't be stupid about this. The moment the man walked away, Daniel locked the door and leaned against it, his breath coming fast. Sophie ran up, her eyes wide. Daddy, you look scary. He forced himself to exhale. Everything's fine, kiddo. We need to figure some things out. That night, after Sophie fell asleep in the truck, their apartment now feeling too unsafe to return to, Daniel pored over Marvin's journal under a flickering flashlight. Page after page confirmed the cars were legitimate. Bills of sale, registration documents, even signed affidavits from previous owners. But one folded paper at the back made his blood run cold. Danny, if you're reading this, they found you. The Cole brothers run the biggest stolen car ring on the East Coast. They've been after my collection for years. Whatever you do, don't sell to Vincent. The second he gets his hands on one car, the rest will disappear. Trust Luis. He knows what to do. Marvin. Daniel's hands shook. Luis, his mechanic friend. The only person he'd told about the garage. A new fear gripped him. Had he already made his first mistake? The mechanic's secret. The first light of dawn was creeping through the truck windows when Daniel jerked awake. Marvin's journal still pressed against his chest. Sophie slept curled up beside him, her breathing steady and calm. For a moment, he just watched her, the way her eyelashes fluttered against her cheeks. She looked so peaceful, so untouched by the storm brewing around them. He carefully unfolded himself in the seat and stepped out into the crisp morning air, stretching the stiffness from his back. The garage loomed in front of him, its broken windows like hollow eyes. Somewhere inside lay a fortune. And somewhere out there, Vincent Cole was already making plans to take it. Daniel pulled out his phone and stared at Luis's contact, his oldest friend, the guy who'd helped him rebuild his pickup's engine last winter when money was too tight for a real mechanic. The same guy who'd gone deathly pale when he saw the Ferrari yesterday. Trust Luis. He knows what to do. Daniel dialed. 3 rings. Then, Danny? You okay? Luis's voice was thick with sleep. We need to talk. Not over the phone. A pause. Then quieter, the diner on 5th, 1 hour. The golden griddle was nearly empty at this hour. Daniel slid into back booth, Sophie half asleep beside him, her head resting against his arm. The smell of coffee and grease hung in the air. Luis arrived 5 minutes later, his usual easy smile absent. He slid into the seat across from them and immediately lowered his voice. You saw Vincent Cole. It wasn't a question. Daniel's pulse spiked. How did you? Because he called me last night. Luis's hands clenched around his coffee cup. Offer me $50,000 to verify the authenticity of your uncle's cars. Said it was just business. Sophie stirred against Daniel's side, her eyes blinking open. "Uncle Luis?" Luis forced a smile for her. "Hey, Mija, you want some pancakes?" He flagged down the waitress and ordered her a short stack before turning back to Daniel, his expression grim. "They're moving fast, Danny. Too fast." Daniel pulled the journal from his pocket and slid it across the table. "Marvin left this. He mentioned you." Luis's breath caught as he read the note. When he looked up, his eyes were shining. "That stubborn old man." "You knew?" Daniel whispered. "Not everything." Luis glanced at Sophie, who was now coloring on a placemat, oblivious. "Marvin reached out to me a few months back. Asked me to help authenticate some parts if anything ever happened to him, but he never told me about the Cole brothers." He tapped the journal. "This changes things." "How?" Luis leaned in. "Because I know someone at the FBI's Art Crimes Division. They've been after the Coles for years. If we play this right, we don't just protect the cars. We put those bastards away." Daniel's mind raced. "What about Sophie? If they're willing to threaten me?" Luis reached into his jacket and pulled out a set of keys. "My sister's cabin up near Lake Tahoe. It's off-grid. Safe." The waitress arrived with Sophie's pancakes. As she dug in, syrup smeared across her cheeks, Daniel felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Vincent had resources, connections, and now he knew about the cars. But as Luis quietly outlined his plan, Daniel realized something. They had something Vincent didn't. They had Marvin's playbook. And the old man had been 2 steps ahead all along. The trap. The cabin smelled of pine and damp wood. Sophie sat cross-legged on the braided rug by the stone fireplace, carefully unpacking her backpack of toys while Daniel double-checked the locks on the windows. Luis had left an hour ago to set their plan in motion, leaving behind a shotgun under the floorboards and a burner phone with a single contact, FBI agent Reyes. "Daddy." Sophie held up a chipped porcelain horse. "Can this live on the windowsill?" Daniel forced a smile. "Sure, kiddo." Outside, the wind howled to the towering pines. Somewhere out there, Vincent Cole's men were searching for them. The thought made Daniel's hands tremble as he unfolded Marvin's journal again, rereading the last entry. "The Coles will come at you sideways, so you hit them head-on." A coded diagram followed, a hand-drawn map of the garage with strange markings near the foundation. Daniel had stared at it for hours before realizing it wasn't just a garage. It was a vault. His phone buzzed. "Luis." It said. They took the bait. Daniel exhaled sharply. Phase 1 was underway. 3 hours earlier, Luis had parked his tow truck conspicuously outside the decaying garage, making sure the security camera Vincent had installed across the street caught him unloading a car dolly. He left the garage door slightly ajar as he worked inside, just enough for prying eyes to glimpse the tarp-covered shape he was carefully loading. Right on schedule, a black Escalade rolled up. Vincent stepped out, flanked by 2 hulking men in suits. "Luis, right?" We spoke on the phone. Luis wiped his hands on a rag, playing nervous. "Mr. Cole, I was just..." Vincent peered past him at the tarp. "Is that the GTO?" Luis hesitated just long enough to sell it. "Look, man, Danny's my friend, but the kid's an over his head. That Ferrari needs serious work, and he's talking about driving it to some auction in Monterey." Vincent's smile turned predatory. "How much to make it disappear before he gets back?" Present time. Daniel paced the cabin's creaky floorboards. The plan was simple. Let Vincent think Luis was stealing the Ferrari for him. When Vincent took possession, the FBI would arrest him for receiving stolen goods, thanks to Marvin's lost ownership papers Luis planted. With Vincent out of the way, Daniel could safely sell the collection through legitimate channels. But plans had holes, like the fact that Vincent's brother, Marcus Cole, was still out there, or that Daniel had lied to Luis about one thing. He'd left something important hidden in the garage's foundation. Something Marvin had called the real legacy. The burner phone rang. Daniel snatched it up. "Luis." Static. Then a voice that wasn't Luis. "Mr. Carter." Ice flooded Daniel's veins. "You should have taken the money." A crash came from outside, the sound of tires tearing through gravel. Sophie gasped as headlights flooded the cabin windows. Daniel lunged for the shotgun under the floorboards, just as the front door exploded inward. Marcus Cole stepped through the splintered frame, a pistol gleaming in his hand. Behind him, two men dragged a bloody Luis. "Dad!" Sophie's whimper was the only sound in the sudden silence. Marcus smiled. "Time to talk about those cars, Danny boy." Daniel's fingers tightened around the shotgun. Marvin's final warning echoed in his mind. When the trap springs, don't hesitate. He didn't. Blood in the snow. The shotgun blast tore through the cabin like thunder. Daniel hadn't aimed to kill, just to maim. The spray of pellets caught Marcus Cole in the shoulder, spinning him sideways with a choked scream. His pistol clattered to the floor as his men dove for cover, dragging Luis with them. Sophie shrieked. Daniel didn't hesitate. He grabbed her with one arm, yanking her behind the overturned kitchen table as Marcus's men returned fire. Bullets punched through the thin cabin walls, sending splinters flying. "Stay down," Daniel hissed to Sophie, pressing her small body against the floorboards. Her breath came in ragged gasps against his chest. Across the room, Luis groaned, half conscious where the thugs had dropped him. One of Marcus's men was crouched near the shattered door, reloading. The other, where was the other? A floorboard creaked behind them. Daniel whirled just as the second man lunged from the hallway, a hunting knife gleaming. The blade sliced through Daniel's flannel shirt, drawing a hot line of fire across his ribs. He brought the shotgun but up in a vicious arc, cracking it against the man's jaw. Teeth scattered like broken pearls. Marcus was crawling toward his fallen pistol, blood smearing the pine planks. Daniel stomped on his wrist, feeling bones crunch. Who else knows about this place? Daniel growled, pressing the shotgun barrel under Marcus's chin. Marcus spat blood. "Vincent's already at the garage. Dumbass. You lose either way." A new kind of fear gripped Daniel. The garage. The real legacy Marvin had hidden. Luis groaned, struggling to sit up. His left eye was swollen shut. Danny, the foundation, he knew they'd come. Another gunshot exploded outside. Then another, not pistols, rifles, through the broken window. Daniel saw black SUVs skidding to a halt in the driveway. Men in FBI windbreakers pouring out. Marcus laughed, a wet, choking sound. Too late. My brother's got what he came for. Daniel made a decision. He grabbed Sophie, shoved the shotgun into Luis's hands, and bolted for the back door. "Daddy, where are we?" "Somewhere safe." The last thing he heard as they disappeared into the pines was Marcus screaming after them. "You're dead, Carter. You and that brat are dead." 2 hours later, the stolen pickup truck fishtailed as Daniel whipped it onto the abandoned service road behind Marvin's property. Sophie clung to the dashboard, her face pale under the moonlight. "Daddy, you're bleeding." Daniel touched his side. His fingers came away sticky. The knife wound was deeper than he'd thought. "It's okay, baby. Almost there." He killed the headlights and coasted the last quarter mile, the garage looming like a tomb in the darkness. The FBI raid had clearly come and gone. Yellow police tape flapped from the doorway, but the place was deserted. Vincent's black Escalade sat abandoned near the entrance, its driver's door hanging open. Daniel's stomach dropped. They were too late. Then Sophie gasped, pointing. "Daddy, look." A figure lay motionless near the Escalade's rear tire. Vincent Cole. A dark pool spread beneath his head, glistening in the moonlight. Dead or unconscious, Daniel couldn't tell. But that wasn't what made his breath catch. The garage door had been peeled open like a tin can, and the Ferrari was gone. Daniel staggered forward, his boots crunching on broken glass. The other cars sat untouched under their tarps. The Mercedes, the Jaguar, the Plymouth. Only the GTO had been taken. Then he saw it, where the Ferrari had been parked. The concrete floor was cracked open, revealing a hidden compartment. Empty, whatever Marvin had buried there. Whatever the Coles had truly been after was already gone. Sophie tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, what do we do now?" Daniel had no answer, until the shadow moved in the corner. A familiar voice rasped. "Took you long enough, Danny boy." From the darkness, Marvin Carter stepped into the moonlight, Alive. Ghost in the machine. The world tilted. Daniel's knees hit the concrete before his brain could process what he was seeing. The man standing before him had Marvin's stooped shoulders, his wild gray eyebrows, even the same oil-stained flannel shirt he'd worn for decades. But Marvin was dead. The lawyer had said so. The will had said so. Sophie shrieked and buried her face in Daniel's side. Marvin sighed and scratched his beard. Yeah, I figured you'd react like that. Daniel's voice came out strangled. You're supposed to be in the ground? Yeah, well, Marvin limped forward, favoring his right leg. Turns out when you fake your death real convincing like, even your lawyer believes it. He nodded toward Vincent's unconscious form. Had to draw these vultures out somehow. Daniel's mind reeled. The inheritance, the garage, the trap, it had all been orchestrated. You used me. The words tasted like ash. You knew they'd come after Sophie and me. Marvin's face hardened. I knew you were the only one they wouldn't expect. He reached into his pocket and tossed Daniel a set of keys. Now, get your ass in gear. We got about 12 minutes before Marcus's backup arrives. The keys landed in Daniel's palm, old, heavy, stamped with a familiar logo. Portia. Sophie peeked out from behind Daniel. Uncle Marvin, are you a ghost? Marvin's laugh turned into a wheezing cough. Nah, kiddo, just real good at disappearing. He jerked his thumb toward the back of the garage. What you're looking for. It's in the 356. Been there 30 years. Daniel's head snapped up. The Porsche 356. The one car he'd assumed was just another part of the collection, the least valuable of the bunch. Marvin was already moving, dragging a tarp off a nondescript trailer. FBI's got Vincent on racketeering now. But Marcus won't stop coming. Not till he gets what's in that Porsche. Daniel's side burned as he stood. Which is what exactly? Marvin's grin showed crooked teeth. Proof the Cole brothers killed my sister. The words hit like a sledgehammer. Daniel's mother. She'd died in a hit-and-run when he was 6. An accident, they'd said. Marvin saw the understanding dawn and nodded grimly. Took me 20 years to find the Porsche they did it with. Another 10 to track down the mechanic who repaired the fender. Kept a blood-stained scrap of your mom's dress in the wheel well like some sick trophy. He spat. Marcus Cole's fingerprints are all over it. Headlights cut through the trees outside. Too soon. Marvin shoved Daniel toward the Porsche. Take it. Take your kid. Get to Agent Reyes at the FBI field office. She's expecting you. What about you? Marvin hefted a pump-action shotgun from the trailer. Somebody's got to buy you time. The first bullets ripped through the garage door as Daniel yanked Sophie into the tiny Porsche. The engine roared to life like it had been waiting 30 years for this moment. As they peeled out the back entrance, Daniel's last sight of Marvin was the old man standing defiant in a hail of gunfire, his laughter echoing through the night. Sophie clutched the mysterious metal box they'd found under the Porsche seat. The one Marvin had said contained enough to bury the Coles forever. Behind them, the garage exploded in flames. The devil in the details. The Porsche's engine screamed as Daniel whipped onto the interstate, the needle pushing past 90. Sophie clutched the metal box to her chest like a life preserver, her knuckles white. In the rear-view mirror, an orange fireball lit up the horizon where Marvin's garage had been. Daddy is Uncle Marvin. Don't look back, baby. Daniel's voice cracked. He couldn't afford to think about that now. Not when black SUVs were already merging onto the highway behind them. The metal box sat between them, its lock rusted shut. Marvin's last words echoed in Daniel's mind. Reyes will know what to do with it. A bullet shattered the rear windshield. Sophie screamed as glass rained down. Daniel slammed the gas pedal to the floor, the Porsche's tiny frame shuddering at 110 miles per hour. The SUVs kept pace, 3 of them now, boxing them in. Hold on tight. Daniel yanked the wheel hard right, skidding across 2 lanes to take the downtown exit. Tires smoked as they careened onto surface streets, the Porsche's low frame scraping against the pavement. The box slid across the seats, its weight shifting ominously. Something inside clunked like a pendulum. One SUV missed the exit. Two still pursued. Daniel's mind raced. The FBI field office was 12 blocks away. They'd never make it. Then he saw it. The old train Yard Marvin used to take him to as a kid. A maze of rusted boxcars and dead-end tracks. Perfect. The Porsche bottomed out as they crashed through the chain-link fence. Daniel killed the headlights, weaving through the skeletal remains of freight trains. Behind them, the SUVs screeched to a halt, their wider frames unable to follow. "Sophie, we need to run now." Daniel grabbed the metal box and her hand. "Stay close and don't look back." They darted between boxcars, the sounds of shouting men and barking dogs echoing through the yard. Sophie stumbled over the uneven tracks, but didn't cry, not even when the first gunshots rang out. Daniel spotted a drainage tunnel, the kind Marvin had shown him a decade ago during one of their adventure walks. The metal grate was still loose. They slid into the darkness just as flashlights swept past. The tunnel smelled of mildew and diesel, the distant drip-drip of water, the only sound. Sophie trembled against him. "I'm scared." Daniel pried at the metal box's latch with his pocket knife. "I know, baby, but we need to see what's in here." The lock gave way with a rusty screech. Inside lay three things: a blood-stained swatch of floral fabric, Mom's dress, a 1989 mechanic's invoice with Marcus Cole's signature, a micro-cassette tape labeled "For Danny Play Me." Daniel's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. No signal, but the voice memo app still worked. He pressed play. Marvin's voice, older than he remembered, filled the tunnel. "If you're hearing this, the Coles finally bit the bait. That blood on the fabric? It's your mother's. The invoice proves Marcus had the Porsche in his shop the day she died. But here's what the FBI doesn't know yet. There were two cars that night. Marcus hit her, but Vince is the one who backed over her to finish the job." A sob caught in Daniel's throat. The tape continued. "The Cole brothers don't just steal cars, Danny. They steal lives. And the ledger taped under this box's lid, it lists every one of their victims. Get it to Reyes. Then take Sophie and the Porsche. It's yours now. Just like it should have been when your mom..." The tape cut off abruptly. New sounds came from above, boots on gravel. They'd been found. Daniel tore the hidden ledger free, just as the grate above was yanked open. A flashlight blinded them. "FBI, hands where I can see them." Sophie clung to Daniel as a familiar woman's voice ordered. "Daniel Carter? I'm Agent Reyes. Marvin said you'd have something for me." The ledger felt like a live wire in Daniel's hands. This wasn't just evidence. It was justice. 30 years overdue. The ledger of blood. The fluorescent lights of the FBI field office buzzed like angry hornets. Daniel sat on a too-small chair, a scratchy bureau-issue blanket around his shoulders, watching Agent Reyes pore over Marvin's ledger. Sophie slept fitfully on a nearby couch, her head in Daniel's lap. Reyes was younger than he'd expected, late 30s, with sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She turned a page in the ledger, her lips pressing into a thin line. "This confirms everything we suspected. The Coles didn't just deal in stolen cars." She tapped a specific entry. They eliminated witnesses. Daniel's throat tightened. The names filled page after page. Mechanics who knew too much, collectors who asked the wrong questions, even a journalist who'd gotten close to the truth. And at the top of the list, in Marvin's jagged scrawl, Margaret Carter, hit and run 1989. His mother. Reyes closed the ledger. "We have Vincent in custody. Marcus is still at large, but we'll..." A commotion erupted outside. Raised voices, then gunfire. Reyes was on her feet in an instant, her sidearm drawn. "Stay here." The moment the door slammed behind her, Daniel scooped up Sophie. He knew that sound. It wasn't just gunfire. It was the pop-pop of suppressors. Marcus's signature move. The overhead lights flickered, then died. Emergency lighting cast a hallway in eerie red. Sophie stirred, her voice thick with sleep. "Daddy?" "Sure, baby. We need to move." Daniel grabbed the ledger and edged toward the fire exit, through the glass partition. He saw Reyes and two agents crouched behind overturned desks, trading fire with shadowy figures in the lobby. Then he saw him, Marcus Cole, his right arm in a sling from the shotgun wound, a gleaming revolver in his left hand. He moved with terrifying purpose toward the holding cells, toward Vincent. Daniel's blood ran cold. The fire exit was too far. The elevators were death traps. Then he remembered. Reyes' office had a service elevator for evidence transport. They were halfway there when the door burst open. Marcus stood framed in the doorway, his eyes wild. "There you are, Danny boy." Daniel shoved Sophie behind him. The ledger felt like a brick in his hands. Marcus's grin showed bloody teeth. "Give me that book, and I'll make it quick for the kid." A voice rang out from behind Marcus. "Not today, asshole." Reyes fired 3 times. Marcus staggered, looking down at the blooming red stain over his heart. His revolver clattered to the floor as he collapsed. The silence that followed was deafening. Reyes kicked Marcus's gun away, her breath coming fast. "You okay?" Daniel could only nod, clutching Sophie to his chest. Then the holding cell alarm blared. Reyes's radio crackled. "Vincent's escaped. Repeat, Vincent Cole is..." The transmission cut off with a scream. Reyes paled. "He's heading for the garage. The evidence impound." Daniel understood instantly. The Porsche, the one piece of physical evidence linking Vincent directly to the murder. Sophie tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, the ghost car." Daniel met Reyes's gaze. They moved as one. The underground garage was a tomb of flickering emergency lights. Daniel's boots echoed off concrete as they ran toward the impound zone, Reyes leading with her flashlight. Too late. The Porsche's hood was up. Vincent stood over it, a bloody screwdriver in his hand. Wires hung like guts from the engine compartment. "Stop. FBI." Reyes leveled her gun. Vincent smiled. "You think I care about prison now?" He held up a dripping fuel line. "The blood evidence is gone." Poof. Daniel stepped forward. "It doesn't matter. The ledger has." Vincent lunged. The explosion knocked them all off their feet. Daniel rolled to protect Sophie as flames engulfed the Porsche. Through the smoke, he saw Vincent crawling toward the exit, his clothes on fire. Reyes was already moving, her gun steady. "Vincent Cole, you're under." Vincent spun, something glinting in his hand. The gunshot came from behind them. Vincent dropped, a hole between his eyes. Daniel turned. Marvin stood in the stairwell, a smoking revolver in his hand. His clothes were charred, his face streaked with soot, but his eyes were clear. "Told you I'd buy you time," he rasped. Then his knees buckled. Daniel caught him as he fell. The old man's blood slicked between his fingers. The garage wound, the cabin fight, the fire. Too much for even Marvin to walk away from. Marvin gripped Daniel's collar, his voice a whisper. "The ledger is not just names. Page 47, your future." His hand went slack. Somewhere distant, sirens wailed. Reyes shouted orders. Sophie cried. But all Daniel could hear was the echo of Marvin's last words as he turned to page 47. There, amid the list of crimes and victims, was a single line that changed everything. Trust fund for Sophie, $8.7 million. Swiss account hashtag 4729-381. All clean. Marvin's final gift. Not just justice. A future. The road ahead. The morning sun filtered to the hospital blinds, painting golden stripes across Sophie's sleeping face. She lay curled in the chair beside Marvin's bed, her fingers still clutching the stuffed pony Daniel had bought her from the gift shop. Across the room, Agent Reyes leaned against the wall, her arms crossed. The Swiss account cleared. "It's legit." Daniel exhaled slowly. $8.7 million. A fortune Marvin had quietly built. Not from stolen cars, but from legitimate deals no one knew about. All for Sophie. On the bed, Marvin's chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. The doctor said it was a miracle he'd survived the gunshot wound, the burns, the blood loss. But at his age, they'd left the sentence unfinished. The door creaked open. Luis walked in, his left arm in a sling, a coffee tray balanced in his good hand. "Figured you could use this." Daniel took the coffee, the warmth seeping into his bruised fingers. "Any news on the cars?" Luis grinned. FBI released M this morning. The GTO's a little worse for wear, but the rest? He whistled. Auction houses are already calling. That Mercedes alone could fetch 30 mil. Daniel glanced at Sophie. Her future was secure, but the cars, they were Marvin's life's work. As if sensing his thoughts, Marvin's eyes fluttered open. His voice was a dry rasp. Danny boy. Daniel was at his side. In an instant. Don't talk. You need to. Marvin waved him off with a weak gesture. The cars. You sell what you want. But the Porsche, he coughed, wincing. You keep that one. For your mom. Daniel's throat tightened. The Porsche, the car that had started it all, the car that carried his mother's blood and Marvin's vengeance, and now his legacy. Sophie stirred, blinking sleepily. Uncle Marvin, you're awake. Marvin's cracked lips twitched into a smile. Hey, Munchkin, heard you're a millionaire now. Sophie frowned. Do millionaires still have to go to school? The room erupted in laughter. Even Reyes cracked a smile. Daniel squeezed Marvin's hand. Thank you for everything. Marvin's grip was surprisingly strong. Nah, kid, thank you. His eyes drifted to the window, where sunlight glinted off the hospital parking lot. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Take that damn Porsche on a real drive. Your mom always loved the coast. Tears pricked Daniel's eyes. He nodded. Outside, the world kept turning. The coals were gone. The ledger was sealed as evidence. And somewhere in a Swiss bank, a little girl's future waited. But for now, in this quiet hospital room, there was just this family forged in fire and oil and blood, and a promise of open road ahead. Did this story grip you like a high-speed chase? Then don't miss our next incredible tale of ordinary people facing extraordinary odds. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next life-changing moment could be just one click away. And let us know in the comments, what would you do with Marvin's Garage? For more real-life stories of secrets, redemption, and jaw-dropping twists, check out the playlist on screen now. Remember, sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight. Smash that like button if you rooted for Daniel and Sophie, and share this with someone who needs a reminder that even in the darkest garages, hope can still spark.